Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhaya Charanaravindra Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Ashtotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading today from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text 33. Jarayatyashu yakosham nigirnam manalo yatha. Jarayatyashu yakosham nigirnam manalo yatha. Jarayatyashu yakosham nigirnam manalo yatha. Jaratyashu yakosham nigirnam manalo yatha. Yatyashu yakosham nigirnam manalo yatha. Jaratyashu yakosham nigirnam manalo yatha. Jarayati dissolves. Ashu quickly. Ya which. Kosham the subtle body. Nigirnam things eaten. Analaha fire. Yatha as. Translation. Bhakti, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. Purport. Bhakti is in a far higher position than mukti because a person's endeavor to get liberation from the material engagement is automatically served in devotional service. The example is given here that the fire in the stomach can digest whatever we eat. If the digestive power is sufficient, then whatever we can eat will be digested by the fire in the stomach. Similarly, a devotee does not have to try separately to attain liberation. That very service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the process of his liberation, because to engage oneself in the service of the Lord is to liberate oneself from material entanglement. Sri Bilvamangala Thakur explained this position very nicely. He said, "If I have unflinching devotion unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then mukti, or liberation, serves me as my maidservant. Mukti, the maidservant, is always ready to do whatever I ask." For a devotee, liberation is no problem at all. Liberation takes place without separate endeavor. Bhakti, therefore, is far better than mukti, or the impersonalist position. The impersonalists undergo severe penances and austerities to attain mukti, but the bhakta, simply by engaging himself in the bhakti process, especially in the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, immediately develops control over the tongue by engaging it in chanting and accepting the remnants of foodstuff offered to the personality of Godhead. As soon as the tongue is controlled, naturally all other senses are controlled automatically. Sense control is the perfection of the yoga principle, and one's liberation begins immediately as soon as he engages himself in the service of the Lord. It is confirmed by Kapila Dev that bhakti, or devotional service, is gariyasi, more glorious than siddhi, liberation. And again, the translation. Bhakti, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Saji Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratushe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today is a nice short half text. I was thinking, I remembered once when I think I was in Vrindavan, I was talking to a devotee much more senior than myself, and I was saying, "Oh Prabhu, what should I do when I'm not prepared for Bhagavatam class?" Which isn't the case here, but he said if you really need to extend it, what you do is you ask the devotees to repeat the translation word for word as well. So he told me that was the little trick that he does whenever he wants to milk out the beginning. And I was tempted to do that today, but we'll still go ahead anyways. And yet, even though it's very short, this text is very, very deep. And actually this whole chapter is very deep. It's very, well, when we read this, we think, this is a very devotional chapter. This is something that would be very exciting to our acharyas. And it is. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes lengthy purports for this section, as Srila Prabhupada, and they're very sweet purports as well. And they're all delving into this concept of, well, the supremacy of devotional service. I was once reading one text, and in it was written by a mundane scholar, and the scholar was saying, there's some sections of the Bhagavatam which are impersonalist, and there's some which are personalist. And I thought, people are just saying any old rubbish these days, When you read the Bhagavatam, it's so explicit, it's so clear, it's so rigorous in its glorification of this theistic path of devotional service. And so, yes, again, this chapter is very much exploring that. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he analyzes this section of the Bhagavatam in terms of Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. He states that here we are discussing Vaidhi Bhakti. And in fact, from texts 34 to 37 onwards, we will continue to hear descriptions of Vaidhi Bhakti if we go ahead, and I won't steal the thunder of the devotees speaking in the coming days, but we'll see these things, these regulated forms of devotion in the preceding texts. Then he says in text 38, we hear this one instant moment of Raganuga, Rag, spontaneous devotion. Of course, this is not Raganuga as a sadhana, but rather the siddha, the perfection of the Raganuga platform. If we see text 38, and again, I don't wish to cut the grass, so to speak, of whoever's speaking, but here we read in text 38 about those devotees who receive transcendental opulences, right? They're never bereft of them. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity. They cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. Of course, this is a perfection because it's described in the fullness of the liberated state. And then for the remainder, 39 to 40, we go back to Vaidhi Bhakti. So we're seeing here some flavors of devotion, and Chakravarti Thakur, he elaborates, giving examples from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and he does something very nice. At a few points he says, if you want to understand this deeper, then read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Srila Prabhupada, he would sometimes make similar points, right? He would say, there's this one morning walk where Prabhupada, he was being asked a question, right? And so the question was being asked, and Prabhupada, he was listening and he was trying to answer. And then at one point he said, I can't really remember. You read Chaitanya Charitamrita, I've written the answer there. And then Prabhupada said, you must all read my books and remember them very, very well. But I wrote the book. I'm allowed to tell you to go check in the book. You should read and you must remember from the book. But the person who has written the book is allowed to tell you. He is allowed to forget and tell you to go check in the book. So we see like this very sweetly our acharyas there encouraging study of devotional literature. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, and I think in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, actually, if my disciples, if the devotees are not engaged in the study of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, these standard works, if they are not engaged in the regular study of them, they will fall down. Prabhupada, he makes this point. We can be engaged in so many things, but if we are not engaged in the regular study of these works, in the regular hearing of the pastimes of Krishna and his devotees, then we will fall down. There is no stability for us. We can be doing all sorts of other things. But until and unless we are learning to relish the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will not be able to stay stable in our Krishna consciousness. But if we do remain steady in the relishing of these things, then we have a very nice destination prepared for us, as this text specifies, right? Just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat, right? And we can think the digestive fire, right? We are eating so many things, right? And so many things we are eating, what does the digestive fire do? It breaks away that which is useful, it keeps for us, and the rest it goes away as waste. Right? So in the same way, when we are engaged in bhakti, all that we have, everything that is beneficial, Bhakti Devi very nicely carves it out for us. Liberation, all of these things, minor things really for the devotee, but very, very big things. All these things are naturally set aside. We do not need to intend to keep any of them. Just as in the same way that when we have prasad, right? After this Bhagavatam class, we'll all rush to have prasad, right? And when we rush to have prasad, what will we do? Will we eat the prasad and will we think, oh well, here's the vitamin C I need to keep separate here. Here is all the protein. And this rest I need to make sure to let go of it. We will not be mentally active of all of these things. Instead, we will naturally think, oh, wow, Ekadashi means paneer sabji, and we will relish. And then when we relish, our bodies will naturally, with the digestive fire, separate all of these things. So in the same way, bhakti does this. All of the benefits we get, we don't need to be concerned with them, right? I remember once we were fasting for Ekadashi, as we all devotees tend to do, right? And I remember one of the youth was asking me, what's the benefit I get from this fast? What's the benefit? What are the specific glories I get for fasting on today? And I said, well, if you're fasting with that mentality, the benefits you get will birth old age disease and then another birth, right? Because if we become concerned with all these things, then we're again trapped in all the benefits we can get, all of these various things. But if we simply engage in the process of devotion, simply for obedience to Guru, Gauranga, and Gopinath, if we simply engage in this process, then naturally we will gain all of these opulences and so much more. Again, just as how digestion very naturally extracts out all that is beneficial from the food that we eat. But not only is this the case, we know we don't instantly get the benefits, right? If we have some malnutrition, right? If we have some sort of deficiency, it's not simply that I have a bit of spinach and my iron levels are back to normal. It's not simply that I have one citrus fruit and my, I think vitamin C we get from citrus, right? Yeah, my vitamin C is suddenly back. It takes a while for it to process through. And so, even though we engage in bhakti, it is not that instantaneously, this bhakti, we will feel all the benefits. The benefits are coming, but slowly they are being digested out. And so like this, we should understand that bhakti, it is something we can let do its own process, but it'll happen in a slow time as we are slowly getting purified and purified and purified, right? It is not that at the very, very beginning everything is gone. So sometimes we take to this process of devotional service and we think, oh, everything will be glorious. And then we think, oh, wait a second. Still on Ekadashi, I want to eat rice, right? We think, oh no, I think I will be so happy, and here I am, and I'm still hankering for material things, right? So we feel all these things, right? And this isn't necessarily a sign that bhakti is not working. It's simply that bhakti is slowly digesting through all of our various desires, all of our various issues. So we see this is the case, right? But yet, nevertheless, bhakti, it is very supreme to all other processes because of this, right? Bhakti, it is supreme because everything that we want, anything that we could want, we naturally get, right? Simply in our palm. And we hear about this in one pastime. And this pastime embodies, I feel, very much the mood of Srila Prabhupada. Not just the mood of Srila Prabhupada, but also the mood of all the Shastras. One cannot read the Bhagavad Gita and not be compelled that simply by the execution of Bhakti Yoga, we will attain all that we require. Srila Prabhupada was once told by his disciples. He was asking his disciples, what are they saying about my books? And one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples said, Prabhupada, they are saying, this one person, I read his review, and this person, he is saying, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he takes the Bhagavad Gita, and any mention of any other yoga form, he removes it, and he replaces it with bhakti. And so they are criticizing you, saying that you are changing the words of the Gita to only speak about bhakti. And Prabhupada said, whoever wrote this is very intelligent. This is exactly what I am doing. So, of course, Prabhupada says this very sweetly. But we can see very naturally, actually, this is the purport of the Gita, right? That bhakti is independent and supreme. And so Prabhupada, because of his mercy, Purijan Prabhu, he writes in Surrender Unto Me, Krishna, he is saying this, that bhakti is the supreme way. But Krishna, he is a little bit reserved, and so he will leave some room for interpretation, maybe here or there. But the devotee is more merciful than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada has made sure we will not make any mistake. When we read the Gita, we will know the only conclusion we should have is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And we find this in the pastimes of Krishna. We know Krishna, when he was very, very young, right? He was carried away, right, by his father Vasudeva, right? And of course, those of us who studied Prabhupada's books, we know that this is one Krishna. And there is another Krishna who was born to Nanda Maharaj and Mother Jashoda, right? We know this. This one Krishna is born. And there's another one born to Vasudeva and Devaki, right? And we know in order to hide away from King Kamsa's very tyrannical rule, Vasudeva, he runs away and he goes and carrying this young Vasudeva Krishna, right? He brings him to where Mother Jashoda has just given birth to Brajendra Nandan, Vrajanath Krishna, right? And so we know in the dark he cannot see this baby, so he places his baby on top of that, and the two Krishnas, they merge together, right? Like this. And then we have the one Krishna, which is the two Krishnas, right? Merged together, and they act out the pastimes. We know this is the case because, of course, Krishna, he never leaves Vrindavan, right? So then, of course, when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, it is this Vasudeva Krishna who leaves Vrindavan and goes and acts all the other pastimes. The Krishna who was born from Mother Jashoda, he stays in Vrindavan, right? And actually there's a few different explanations of where he hides. My favorite explanation that I've heard from His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu, a very senior disciple of His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj. He says that Krishna, this whole time, where does he hide? He hides in the hearts of the gopis. And hiding in the hearts of the gopis, he's hiding there and he's thinking, I'll hide here and they'll never know I'm hiding here. And so for a while, Krishna, he hides here, he hides there, he hides there. And then after a while, he thinks, okay, maybe I should come out now, right? And when Krishna jumps forth, right? He jumps forth. But then he sees, I'm not here at the bank of the Jamuna anymore. Where am I? I'm at the bank of the Ganga, right? And my Sham Sundar skin, it's looking not very sham. I'm looking very much like Gaur Sundar, right? I'm having very golden skin, right? So Madhavananda Prabhu, he says that actually, what was Vraj Krishna doing? Vraj Krishna, he was in the hearts of the gopis, stealing their mood, in order to prepare for Gaur Leela. This is what Madhavananda Prabhu says. I forgot he appeals to one shastra to make this argument, but it's a very sweet explanation, I find. So, we know Vraj Krishna, he is hiding, he is hidden away. And Vasudeva Krishna, he has run away to do his pastimes and to break the hearts of all the Brijwasis, right? But we know the whole reason why Krishna went to Vrindavan in the first place was to hide away from the persecutions of Kamsa, right? We know even the Brijwasis, Nanda Maharaj and all, they chose Vrindavan as the eventual place for them to settle in because they're thinking, wow, Putana, Vritraso, all these demons are coming, we need to hide from these demons, right? We know they all came together to decide this in order to flee away from the persecutions. So, like this, they're all there. And what happens? Krishna, he has now revealed himself. I am back. He kills Kamsa. And so we think, oh, what will happen here, right? Krishna, he thinks, I cannot go back to Vrindavan, right? Because we know, even though Kamsa has killed Jarasandha, all these other demons, they are still there. And so if Krishna returns back to Vrindavan, he thinks, I will endanger all of my sweet devotees, all my sweet relatives there. They are very, very simple people, right? They are not like my Kshatriya relatives, right, who are very strong and potent in military activities, who will be able to fight off any demon. No, the Brijwasis, they are very simple, right? My Kshatriya relatives, they ride around in chariots with armor, ready to fight off any individual. Oh, but the Brijwasis, they don't ride around in a chariot, they ride around in a bullock cart, right? And they don't wear armor, they wear a simple dhoti, right? So I cannot go back, because if I go back, I will endanger all of them. This is how Vasudeva Krishna, this is how he thinks. And so he thinks, I have to get trained now as a Kshatriya, right? I'm not, before I'm a Vaishya, I'm not so trained in the etiquette of courtly life. And so we know Krishna, he gets sent to Gurukul, right? And who is his Gurukul teacher? Sandipani Muni, right? Sandipani Muni, interestingly, it's mentioned in Gopal Champu, that Sandipani Muni is in fact not a Vaishnava. He is a Shaiva. He is a worshipper of Shiva. And sometimes we will wonder, why is this the case, right? How is Sandipani Muni a Shaiva? And the explanation that's given is that if Sandipani Muni was a Vaishnava, he would see Krishna and he would think Krishna, the spiritual master, is the representative of Krishna, right? How can I become the spiritual master of Krishna, right? This is rasabhas. How can I be the one who is teaching Krishna? This is not the case. So actually, in terms of pastime, Sandipani Muni, he actually plays a role of a Shaiva. Because the Shaiva is unaware that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So only he will be comfortable being the teacher of Krishna and Balaram, right? So like this, Krishna and Balaram, they are there and being taught in the Gurukul of Sandipani Muni. And so, being educated in this way, they are having a very sweet time, right? We hear all these wonderful pastimes of how they very sweetly engage in service of their Guru. But we know one thing. The Jamuna River, where it flows from Vrindavan and it passes by where the Gurukul of Sandipani Muni is. And so what would happen is that every single day, whenever Krishna, he would walk past this river, right? He would see, what would he see? He would see the tears of all the Brijwasis. Because all the Brijwasis, they would go to the Jamuna, and seeing it, we know, Jamuna Tira Bonachari, Srila Prabhupada, he says, he loves Jaya Radha Madhava because in it is everything. The gopis, the gopas, the Jamuna, the forest of Vrindavan, right? So all of the pastimes of Krishna, they're captured in Jaya Radha Madhava. And so when the Brijwasis would see the Jamuna, they would begin to cry. They would begin to break into these lamentations, right? It's described elsewhere actually that in Vrindavan, the honey that comes from the trees, the nectar, is actually the tears of separation that even the trees and the plants have from Krishna, right? Like this, we hear that Vraj is engaged in a constant lamentation for its separation from Krishna. And so in this way, they would see the Jamuna, and they would think, where is our Krishna gone? He used to dance on here all the time, play around, where is he gone? And they would begin to weep. And weeping, their tears would go in the Jamuna, and like this, they would carry the message down to Krishna, right? How much we are missing Krishna. And so Krishna, he would see these tears, and he would be completely heartbroken, right? All my devotees, they are missing me so much. So like this, Krishna, he's thinking. And as we know, Krishna, he's promised to return, but we know he will not return, right? So what does he do? He thinks, I have to send somebody to appease them. I cannot stand that my devotees are in so much pain, right? And so Krishna, he thinks, I have to send somebody to send a message. And so he thinks, I have to send a very particular person. If I send somebody who's filled with the Aishvarya Bhav, with the mood of opulence, right? They will go to Vrindavan, and what will happen to them? What will happen if somebody who is fully in the mood of Aishvarya, what will happen to them if they see the Brijwasis lamenting like this? Can anyone think? What will somebody in Aishvarya Bhav think? What will they think? They're used to the opulent Lord. Krishna or Narayan is the supreme being, and we must fully surrender to him as Lord of the universe. And then they see Mother Jashoda crying and saying, who will feed Krishna? Who will feed him? What will those in Aishvarya Bhav think? Well, they will think offenses. They will think, what's wrong with these people? These people, they're so weird, right? They'll think, these people, they just need to read Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. They will think like this. They will think, Mother Jashoda, she is unversed in the Vedic literature. They will think like this. And thinking such nonsense, they will commit aparad. So if somebody is fully in the mood of opulence, they will not be able to be sent to Vrindavan. But then Krishna thinks, if I send somebody fully in the mood of madhurya, of sweetness, what will happen? They will go to Vrindavan. They will hear the cowherd boys lamenting, who can we play with? We can't play with anyone anymore. They will hear the parents of Krishna lamenting, our sweet child is gone, right? is described Mother Jashoda. If her eyes are open, what does she see? She sees the trees, she sees the cows, she sees the rivers, she sees the blades of grass. She sees everything, right? And what does she see? She sees the place where Krishna enacted his sweet pastimes, and her heart becomes broken more and more and more and more, right? But when she closes her eyes, what does she see? She sees the darkness of the back of her eyelids, and she remembers the beautiful Sham Sundar form of Krishna. And then when she sleeps, all she dreams about are Krishna's pastimes. So whether she is awake with her eyes open or her eyes closed, or whether she is asleep, Mother Jashoda, she cannot run away from her memories of Krishna, right? Actually, we see this is the glory of the Brijwasis. In this material world, what are we all trying to do? We are trying to remember Krishna. And by and large, we are failing. I can say I'm definitely failing. But the Brijwasis, what are they doing? They're trying to forget Krishna, and they're absolutely failing. This is the glories of those devotees in that domain. So, we see like this, and if somebody fully in Madhurya Bhav would go, they would see these devotees, and what would happen? They would see them and they would think, oh, that rascal Krishna. How could he do this to these sweet devotees? They love him so much, and Krishna would break their hearts like this, and then whoever Krishna would send, Krishna would think, if I send somebody in Madhurya Bhav, they will betray me. They will think I cannot serve such a wicked person as Krishna, who will break the hearts of the Brijwasis like this. So Krishna, he's in an issue, and he's thinking, who can I send? I have to send someone. And so like this, Krishna, he has a dilemma. And we know, who does he eventually send? One person he sees in his court. Who does he send? Uddhava, right? He sees Uddhav and he says, Uddhav, you are perfect, right? And we know Uddhav, he's in that classic Dwarka Bhav, right? Dwarka is in this mood of, there's this intimacy with Krishna, right? There's some understanding, but there's still some opulence, right? It's above Ayodhya. There is less opulence than there is in Ayodhya, right? Or we should say, rather than less opulence, there is more sweetness, right? But still not at the level of Goloka. And so he thinks, Uddhav, you are perfect, right? And so he sends Uddhav. And Uddhav, he goes. And Uddhav, he is there. Uddhav is a great personality, in fact, actually. Does anyone know who's Uddhav's guru? Brihaspati, right? And Brihaspati, he is the acharya of who? The demigods, right? Very rare that a non-demigod, right, becomes the disciple of Brihaspati. But Uddhav is a disciple of Brihaspati. And so we see Uddhav is a great personality. And so it was seen that it would be appropriate for him to be sent. And as we know, he goes there and he arrives. It's a long pastime. I won't go through all of it, right? But we know he arrives there. And of course, we know initially they all get very excited. They think Krishna has returned. Krishna has returned. And then they see there's a lack of the white hair, right? The Kaustubha gem is not present. And so like this, we see the gopis and gopas, they're very disappointed, they're very heartbroken. They think, oh, we were very excited. But still, of course they go, and we know Uddhav, he gives a very nice message, right? And what is that message? He tells all of them, engage in yoga. He says engage in Sankhya yoga, engage in jnana, engage in all these processes. We know that Krishna was not very serious, because actually in Uddhav Gita, Krishna, he says, I am not obtained by yoga. If one engages in this process of Sankhya yoga, one cannot attain me. So we know later on in Bhagavatam, Krishna says this to Uddhava. So we know he's not fully serious. There's some sort of secret intention. And we can speak a while. Our acharyas have given long, rigorous explanations of what this secret intention is. But at its heart, the reason why this is spoken is that so we can see the rejection of this path in order for the ultimate glory of bhakti, right? And is this not the purport of the text we are discussing today, right? This jnana, what will it do? It will do nothing for us, right? And so we see like this, and Uddhava, he is completely bewildered. What is the position of these personalities, right? We know so famously. It's described by one senior Vaishnava that if Uddhava, he is wearing a hat, right? And if he is wearing a hat and he is looking at the love that the gopas and gopis, that all the Brijwasis have for Krishna, looking at their love, he is looking up, and the hat has fallen off his head, right? He is looking that far up that he cannot even see the heights. And Uddhav, what does he say? I can pray only to be a blade of grass trampled by the lotus feet of such personalities. I cannot pray to be one of them. Who they are is beyond my understanding. So like this, Uddhava, he prays. And he prays a very nice text. And so I have it here. Eta param tanubhritto bhuvi gopa vadho govinda eva nikhilatmani rudha bhavaha vanchanti yad bhava bhiyo munayo vayamcha kim brahma janma bhir ananta katha rasasya. And what is this text? Among all persons on earth, these cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives. For they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages, and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high-class Brahmin, or even as Lord Brahma himself? And here we find the essence, I would say, in this text here, in this glorification by Uddhav. We are finding the principle that we have explored here, right? Because what do we hear? Kim Brahma Janmabhir Ananta Katha Rasasya, right? What is the point of being born as a Brahmin? Engaging in cultivation of jnana, in the best case scenario, or the execution of karma kanda activities, right? What is the point of any of the highest fruits that one can attain in this material birth? Birth as Brahma. Birth as Brahma is the highest birth, right, in this world. What is the point of such a birth, right? Instead, what should we have? Ananta katha rasasya. We should have rasa. We should have taste for the katha of Krishna. And this is the point that Srila Prabhupada made when I was describing earlier, right? That if we are not engaged in the reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, if we are not engaged in the study of Chaitanya Charitamrita, one will fall down. What is the essence of this Bhakti Yoga platform? The essence is to be engaged in the speaking and relishing of Krishna Katha. This is the glory of those Brijwasis, right? That they are continuously having rasasya, ananta katha rasasya, taste for the katha of Krishna. And because they are continuously tasting it, thus they are in their glorified position. And thus, who cares for the birth of being like Brahma? Who cares to be in a Brahminical birth? It's said that one of the reasons Uddhava spoke this text, right, is that some people might be wondering, how can Uddhava, a Kshatriya, be engaging in so much glories of these cowherd women who are Vaishyas? And Uddhava says, who cares about being a Kshatriya? Who cares even about being a Brahmin? Who cares about being a Brahmin? Who cares about being Brahma? If one has taste for Hari Katha, then one is on this highest platform. And so, this is the position of these individuals. And this is the message we should take away. What is the point of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness last week? On Wednesday, I think it was, in the purport, Prabhupada, he says, the point for this International Society for Krishna Consciousness is to facilitate the association of devotees. This is the point for ISKCON. But we must wonder, what is sadhu sangha? I still remember once I was speaking to one devotee, and this devotee, he was saying, we are going for Vaishnav Sangha. We are going for Vaishnav Sangha in St. Leonard's Park after the Sunday feast. And I thought, okay, what will we be doing? He said, we'll be playing cricket. And I thought, actually, very sweet. Much, much sweeter to play cricket with the Vaishnavas than to play with anyone else, right? But still, I don't think this is exactly what we mean by Vaishnav Sangha, right? At its heart, sadhu sangha, Vaishnav sangha means I will find those people who are speaking about Krishna and I will hear about Krishna from them. This is what Vaishnav Sangha means. We see Vaishnav Sangha in the Govardhan pastime, right? What happens? There is a festival, right? Actually, I think we should model all our festivals of this pastime, Govardhan Leela. There's actually only 2 times in Krishna Leela when all the Brijwasis come together as a community. One is Govardhan Leela. Does anyone know the other one? Kaliya's pastimes, yes. When Krishna purifies the devotee Kaliya. Sometimes we hear Krishna defeats the demon Kaliya. Sanatana Goswami actually writes that actually it's the purification of the devotee Kaliya. Do I have time? Yes, I have time. So I'll just make the point about why Sanatana Goswami he says that. Sanatana Goswami he says that because Sanatana Goswami actually depicts in his Vaishnava Toshani commentary on the Bhagavatam. He says Kaliya is actually representing the misguided devotee. The devotee who is unsure, the Kanishta, who is unsure about how to express his love for Krishna. And so he says when Kaliya is wrapping around Krishna and strangling him, he's actually trying to embrace and hug Krishna. When he's trying to bite him, he's actually trying to give kisses to Krishna, but he doesn't know how to. Sanatana Goswami, he writes very sweetly like this. And so when Krishna begins to dance on the heads of Kaliya, what is he doing? He's saying, I acknowledge your intent to love me, but I'm purifying you of all your imperfections in your attempts. And actually we can think about this point. This dancing is very, very particular, right? This dancing is particular. Why? Narayan does not dance. We know of the 64 qualities of Krishna. Those which are unique to Krishna are what? He has beautiful pastimes, he has a beautiful flute. And we know Krishna so beautifully, he's dancing on the heads of Kaliya. Ramchandra is not dancing. Right? Can we imagine that? Ramchandra with this bird dancing? It's a little peculiar, right? Definitely Narayan is not dancing. But why do I mention Narayan is not dancing? We hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita that whenever Krishna kills demons, it's not Krishna killing the demons. It's Narayan in Krishna killing the demons. But Narayan does not dance. So when Krishna, he is dancing on the heads of Kaliya, this is Krishna directly acting on Kaliya and purifying this aspiring devotee. And that's why we see Kaliya, he does not die. Instead, he engages very nicely. He is always available. Actually, it's described in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that in a different kalpa, in a different manifestation of Krishna's pastimes, it isn't Akrura who takes Krishna to kill Kamsa. It's Kaliya. Krishna gets on Kaliya's heads and he rides Kaliya and goes to Kamsa and then he kills him there, right? Anyways, so there's only 2 times when the Brijwasis there all together. And this is one of those times, right? And we know this is more of a festival. The Kaliya pastime, Brijwasis, they're engaged in intense moods. But in Govardhan pastime, everyone is there under the shelter of Giriraj Govardhan. It's described all the rain that is falling down went from being a very terrible thing to be looking like gems going down the side, like decorations. We know in festivals, we see very nicely all the devotees, they decorate the whole temple room, don't they? They put flowers everywhere, right? They put all these beautiful decorations, all these lights. Right? All of these wonderful little features are put. This means this is what a festival is. And so it's described that Giriraj Govardhan, right? When all the rainwaters would fall down, it would be like that, like this beautiful decoration around the side, right? And when you would hear the wind blowing through the caves, it had the sound of children laughing. This is the description. So there's a wonderful, wonderful festival under Giriraj Govardhan. And what is everyone engaged in? They're talking about Krishna, right? Madhumangal, the very sweet Brahminical friend of Krishna, he is telling all the gopas, he is saying, actually, Krishna, I'm a Brahmin. Krishna, he's a Vaishya. Actually, it is because of my potency the Govardhan is being held up. He's saying like this to all the cowherd boys. Actually, Krishna, he's lucky he has a Brahminical friend. I am chanting Brahminical mantras, and because of that, Govardhan is lifting up, right? And then at this point, Krishna, he will wave his hand a little bit, and the mountain will shake, and then he will say, no, actually, I'm not doing anything. Krishna, please hold on to it, harder. And then we know, like this, they're all speaking about Krishna. And Mother Yashoda, she chastises all of them. And she says, can you not see? There is a drop of sweat coming down Krishna's forehead. How can you joke Krishna, he is struggling so much. How can you joke about this? Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, he says, he quotes Bhakti Rakshak Shrida Maharaj. Bhakti Vikash Maharaj, he quotes him. And he says that Mother Jashoda, she will die 1,000,000 deaths in order to wipe off just one drop of sweat off of Krishna's forehead, in order to give him that slight relief, the depths of her path. So like this, they are all engaged in Krishna Katha. This is what Vaishnav Sangha is. This is what Sadhu Sangha is. That we all come together, and how do we celebrate? We celebrate by discussing Krishna. I still remember, we might remember, Hamsa Sangha Prabhu. He used to be in the ashram here in Sydney. And I still remember, after every day, after Bhagavatam class was finished, we all know after Bhagavatam class we have darshan of their lordships, right? And every time after darshan, he would come up to me and he would say, what color sari was Srimati Radharani wearing today? And if I would forget, he would say, what are you doing? You're just going there thinking this and that nonsense, right? You're not having darshan of their lordships. And I actually think there's a very sweet point, right? We should continuously be speaking, right? We are constantly having the great opportunity to have darshan of Radha Gopinath, Swayam Bhagavan, right? We should always be speaking. Oh, did you see how sweetly Gopinath, how sweetly he is holding the flute today, right? And if anyone is a rascal and says he's holding it the same way every day, then they are not appreciating the ever freshness of Krishna's beauty, right? We can speak about how beautiful the sunset and the sunrise are every day. They're the same every day, and yet everyone always says how beautiful they are. How much more beautiful is Gopinath holding his flute? So this is Vaishnav Sangha, and this is what we should engage in. Vaishnav Sangha means to associate with the devotees and to speak and to hear Hari Katha, right? And so like this, we hear, this is the glories of the gopis, right? This is the glories of all the Brijwasis. Of course, Uddhava specifically, he is glorifying the gopis. And we know this principle is very, very powerful. And how do we know this? What form does Uddhava take in Gaur Leela? Does anyone know? Paramananda Puri, right? So Paramananda Puri is a form that Uddhav takes in Gaur Leela. And from here we can take some lessons. Actually, we should never, my mother, she always told me growing up, if I have sabji, I have to have dal as well, right? I can't have one without the other. She would always give me this principle, right? And we see today, many people, what they'll eat in the West, they'll always have a salad with their meal, right? These things always must go together. So I always think, when we feast on Krishna Katha, we should always feast on Gaur Katha as well. They are one and the same, connecting each other. We do not understand Krishna Katha if we do not understand Gaur Katha. And we do not understand Gaur Katha if we do not understand Krishna Katha. Both go side by side together. We hear this principle in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Leela Amrita Pura, Krishna Leela Sukar Pura, right? So, like this, we hear that Uddhava, he has taken the position of who? Paramananda Puri. Now, Paramananda Puri, he is a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, right? And Paramananda Puri, he had a very special relationship to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? When Mahaprabhu took sannyas, it was actually Paramananda Puri who offered him the danda, right? With the performance of the sannyas ceremony. And it's described that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada, he writes this, he would give the same respect to 3 different individuals as he gave, he would give the same respect to these 3 individuals. Ishvara Puri. What respect was that? That is the respect of the spiritual master, right? He would give the same respect then to 2 others. So he would treat them as equal to his spiritual master. One of them, I'm sure we can guess, is Paramananda Puri. The other one is Swarup Damodar, right? Now we understand why he gives this respect to Ishvara Puri, right? Because it's his spiritual master. We understand then why he gives it to Swarup Damodar. Because who is Swarup Damodar an incarnation of? Well, some authorities say Lalita, others say Vishaka. At the very least, we know a gopi, right? And that's why in the Antya Leela, when Mahaprabhu, he's very much trying to understand the mood of Radharani, he's taking a lot of shiksha, a lot of guidance from Swarup Damodar, like this, because he's trying to understand what is this mood, the heart of Radharani, right? So he's understanding it from these incarnations, right? But then why Paramananda Puri, right? We also know in the Gundicha Marjan, Paramananda Puri is one of the few devotees Mahaprabhu didn't allow to carry the buckets of water when they're all cleaning the Gundicha temple. He didn't allow him to show the respect he gives him as the spiritual master. Now, why Paramananda Puri? We understand Swarup Damodar, we understand Ishvara Puri. Why is Paramananda Puri listed? These are the 3 devotees Prabhupada lists as the ones that Mahaprabhu treated as his spiritual master. Why Paramananda Puri? The reason why is because Paramananda Puri, he's an incarnation of Uddhava. And what has Uddhava understood in Krishna Leela? Uddhava in Krishna Leela, he has understood the glories of the mood of the gopis. And not only that, he has understood the glories of the mood of the Brijwasis, their absorption in Krishna Katha. This is the very mood which Mahaprabhu wishes to taste. And so, in Krishna Leela, Krishna, he sends Uddhava, you go to the Brijwasis, you go to Vrindavan. And then in Gaur Leela, Mahaprabhu, he says, now you come back and you teach me what you have learned. So we see here, Uddhava, he is continuing that cycle. He is engaged in sadhu sangha by hearing Krishna Katha from all the Brijwasis. And now having heard that Krishna Katha, he is coming back to Krishna in order to teach him about it. He has come back to Krishna in order to speak this Katha to him. And this makes him Guru. This makes him in this position to Krishna. Then what is the glory of devotional service? What is the glory of bhakti? What is the glory of this engagement in the relishing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Right? Very, very high. We can see this. So this is the glory of bhakti, right? Krishna, he is so much hankering for Paramananda Puri to explain his realizations as Uddhava, right? So here we see very sweetly, this is a high, high position. So I have a few more notes and then I'll wrap up in time for prasad. So we see here, this is the principle. And so Paramananda Puri is a great Vaishnava. In fact, so great is Paramananda Puri's position. We know he will have a well, right? Are we familiar with this pastime? Paramananda Puri, he had a well, right? And this well would always become very filthy and very dirty. And it's described actually that Jagannath was thinking, I do not want Paramananda Puri to be disturbed by all these individuals who will come and try to drink the water, the remnants of Paramananda Puri's well. So Jagannath, in order to protect Paramananda Puri, what did he do? He made it dirty and filthy. And so no one would want to drink the water. But then Paramananda Puri became very upset about this, And so he asked Mahaprabhu. He asked Mahaprabhu, please help. And we know in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Mahaprabhu, he comes. And then he prays that all of the Ganga can be manifest in Paramananda Puri's well. So if we ever visit Puri, right? If we ever visit Puri, we can try to find Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's actually correctly identified the location of this well. So if we wish to have the remnants of a great, great devotee, right? And also all the purification of the Ganga and everything else, we should relish this water. But anyways, in this way, we hear the glories of this, of Vraj Katha. We hear the glories of these things. And what is that glory? We hear it in Krishna's pastimes, right? It's described, actually, by Sanatana Goswami, that Krishna's flute playing, it's described as having the same sound as thunderclouds, right? But not just any thunderclouds, very sweet thunderclouds. So it's described when Krishna would play his flute, it would have that same, we know the majesty when we hear thunder going, roaring, right? It has this power to it. Sanatana Goswami says Krishna's flute playing had that level of power, but instead of that violence of the thundercloud, it had a lot of sweetness, right? And in fact, the thunderclouds themselves, in Vrindavan, what they would do is they would see Krishna and they would say, here is our brother. Why did they say Krishna was their brother? Because we know Krishna has the color of the very pregnant monsoon cloud, right? And so they would see Krishna's sham skin and they'd say, here is our brother. We must assist him. And then the rains, they would pour down on Krishna. And pouring down on Krishna, they would say, we are giving him some relief. He is always out in the fields, working hard with all of these cows, taking care of them. We will give some relief to our brother. And like that, it's considered that even the rains in Vrindavan, what do? They're there simply to care for Krishna, right? It's like this we hear. And so Krishna, he would play his flute like this. And it's actually described, I heard this once in a class, that when Krishna, he would play his flute, all the animals that would be running around, right? All the animals that would be running around, they would stop and they would all listen to Krishna's intoxicating flute playing, right? And when Krishna, he would play the flute, what happened is the peacocks. We know peacocks, when the thunder is going, they actually begin to dance a lot. You might see this when you go to New Gokul, right? When you go to the farm. You will see that when it becomes a little bit overcast, you'll see the peacocks, they begin to do their, they open up all their feathers and they begin to dance. And so it's described actually that when Krishna, he played his flute, all these peacocks, they began to dance in front of Krishna, right? They began to dance and dance and dance. And like this, Krishna, he would be entertaining all the peacocks in Vrindavan, right? And while he would be entertaining them, they would think, you'll see like this. One of my friends, he's from Pakistan. And in Pakistan, they do a lot of qawwali. It's a type of singing. It's also there in Punjab, North India. You'll see a lot of it. And the tradition is that when this musician, when you like them, you give them money, right? So you like it so much, you give whatever money you have. The whole idea is you shouldn't discriminate. Whatever money is in your wallet, you throw it on as a sign of appreciation, right? And so the peacocks, they were feeling like this. But they thought, we do not have any money to give. We do not have anything to give. So simply, what one peacock did, in its joy at hearing Krishna's flute play, it plucked off its peacock feather and it threw it at Krishna. And Krishna was very appreciative. And so, this is one katha I've heard. In one kalpa, this is where Krishna begins to wear a peacock feather in his turban, right? Because he takes this offering, from his devotee, the peacock, and he places it in his turban. And like this, Krishna is very pleased, right? And it's described, this peacock did not offer it. In that same way that those musicians, they offer money. Nowadays, my friend from Pakistan, he was saying what they do is when you go there, they'll give you fake money before you go. So then you can give this fake money in it. And then you can be like, oh wow, what a coincidence. The first money in my wallet is all these fake rupees, right? But this peacock was not giving like that. This peacock was giving sincerely one of its own feathers. And like this, Krishna accepts it, right? So we can think, what is the sweetness of Krishna, right? Simply with his flute and the peacocks, they're all intoxicated. And so naturally like this, they'll engage. Anyways, I had a few other pastimes of Krishna, but we're getting at 9 o'clock, so we'll have to save them for next time. But we'll conclude on there. On that note, we should always be trying to speak the pastimes of Krishna, the glories of Krishna. We should always try to be hearing them. And by doing that, simply just as the stomach digests all foods, we will digest all worries. There is no worry in our life. The only worry we should be having is, are we hearing about Krishna and are we speaking about Krishna? If that is our only concern, then we will have no concerns or no worries. So, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Namo Vishnu.